Good evening to our audiences in Asia and good morning to our audiences in the UK. Welcome to the CMI Asia Pacific Deep Dive into the Energy Sector Digital event hosted by our members in APAC. My name is Samantha and I'm an International Coordinator at CMI, and I will be shortly handing over to Dr. Alan Miller to begin today's event. If you have any questions during the digital event, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we will answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you later today for those who have booked to attend. The event recording will also be available on the CMI website and CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Dr. Alan Miller, former board member of the CMI Hong Kong Regional Board, to begin the event.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samantha. Welcome everyone. My name is Alan Miller. I'm a chartered engineer and former member of the CMI Regional Board here in Hong Kong. It's my great pleasure to introduce our speakers this evening. Firstly, Govindaraja Narayasetti, who is also a CMI Regional Board member, but in Singapore. He is also Director, Energy and Industrial of Surabana Jurong. And secondly, in Japan, is Shilin, who is the Asia Operations Excellence Leader at GE Gas Power Japan. Welcome, both of you. If you would like each of you to give a slight introduction of your background. Raj, if you'd like to begin to explain to everyone your background in the energy sector.
Thanks, Alan. I am delighted to be a part of today's discussion to share my thoughts on this topic. I'm Govindaraja Narayasetti. You can call me Raj. I'm the Director of Energy and Industrial, leading LNG and cryogenics team within Surabana Jurong. I'm a chartered manager and a chartered engineer and a governing council member of CMI Regional Board in Singapore. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raj. And Shilin in Japan, if you'd like to give a slight background of your experience.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Ellen. I'm also very delighted to be, invited to this panel and speak with these folks today. So a little bit about me. I'm Celine. I'm currently based in Japan. I lead the Asia Center of Excellence team, as Ellen mentioned. Basically, what that means is that I lead a team of 9 people that serves 22 countries in Asia for GE Gas Power. We look at, serving the frontline managers that serve our customers, navigating through all the internal processes and the systems and all the demand placement to make sure we get parts, services, and repairs there on time for our customers. A little bit before this, I've actually rotated a little bit in GE, so I've seen the manufacturing space a little bit in healthcare, oil and gas, and aviation. But most recently, I've actually moved into the energy sector. I'm very, very energized being in this industry. So I'm really, really excited today to speak on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailene. Well, we're very excited to have you both here this evening. So let's start with our questions. Later on, our audience will be able to give their questions. But let's start with our initial questions. Question number 1, are there regional differences or commonalities in the challenges and opportunities facing managers and leaders in the Asia energy sector, i.e. the differences Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan? Raj, do you like to start that one?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. It's a very good question, actually. Securing an affordable and a reliable source of energy is very important nowadays for every country. I think within Asia, challenges faced by managers and leaders are slightly different because, as I feel that they are linked to the energy mixes of each particular country, policies and the regulations what they have. Okay. For example, I will give you an example of Singapore. The energy mix for Singapore is more than 90% of the Singapore's energy mix is by natural gas, basically, and followed by petroleum products and a little bit of solar, which is already, I would say, a little low carbon footprint type of fuels being used. For Malaysia, for example, as far as my knowledge goes, and natural gas is somewhere around 47%, and coal is somewhere around 40%, and they also have a good mix of renewables like hydro and solar. And another important factor to this is policies and regulations. Policies and regulations, are derived from the energy security and they are also to minimize the environmental impacts to the country and also reduce the consumer costs and the reliability and so on, basically. So availability of distribution infrastructure also, I feel that is another important factor. Recently, you might have seen the spot prices of in Europe for LNG has dipped below zero, right? That is because of the lack of infrastructure for the storage, right? So that is also a very key and important factor. Apart from that, countries like Singapore are very, having a little space. So space availability for the development of infrastructure also plays a role. And one of the key challenges now what the leaders and the managers are facing in this particular sector is cost pressures mainly, because most of the materials are, very expensive, lack of skilled manpower, your supply chain disruptions are quite, disruptive nowadays. And even construction productivity has gone down, post-COVID, and there are some inflationary pressures leading to project delays. So these are some of these challenges I thought, I can list quickly for all of us to have a thought about around it. Thanks, Ellen.
Okay, thanks, Raj. And Shailene, would you like give your opinion on this?
I would echo everything Raj is saying. Like, I see the same in GE Energy right now, and I don't think it's just GE. I don't think it's just the energy sector, but I feel it the most, especially in Asia, despite, with the pandemic plus the, Russian-Ukraine war, that has really caused such a big strain on the supply chain side. And, what we thought initially with like simple monthly or quarterly rigor, that has blindsided us now, I think. So things now, the challenges with the managers is like looking at things. Daily management is becoming so important, making sure you have real-time data and visibility to your forecast and your planning. That becomes extra key because, as Raj correctly mentioned, rising labor costs, chips are expensive, even simple things like bolts and nuts are all holed up in China, and people are looking to diversify their supply chain right now.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, our second question. What are the key challenges for managers and leaders in the success of the Energy Transition Initiative? Raj, would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, it's a very good, and it's a buzzword which is happening in the energy sector now, Ellen, to be frank. If you Google in Wikipedia, right, you will see energy transition is a process of replacing the fossil fuels by low carbon fuels, basically. Right. Let me take an example to explain a little bit in a wider manner. Take an example of oil and gas plants. Typically, they are segregated into two parts. One is greenfield projects and the brownfield projects. So most of us, we know what the brownfield projects are. Means the existing plants. What leaders or the managers need to do is look into the energy efficiencies of those plants. How do we optimize the energy, fuel mix to reduce the carbon footprints? Deploy some of those, carbon capture, solutions which are available. But one question still remains for everyone is, after I capture, what shall I do with this carbon, right? That's where people are stuck today. So that means disposal is an issue currently. And then how do you create sustainable products downstream? That is a challenge where people are working on. I can see a lot of companies, universities working, and I myself was also, linked to a few universities. And Subhana Jurong was also awarded for low energy carbon, research projects for us, where we are looking into, providing some sustainable solutions. So quite a lot of, work is happening. In terms of greenfield projects, let me take an example of liquid hydrogen, where another buzzword what people are trying to achieve by 2050, right? So currently for liquid hydrogen, you see quite a lot of technical challenges, or technology challenges rather, I call it. So there is no technology which can hold or store large quantities of liquid hydrogen in one place, nor transport large quantities of liquid hydrogen from point A to point B. And now the industry is also struggling to find cost-efficient, low-carbon solutions as well. Again, when it comes to the leadership, when it comes to the managers to take some decisions, especially at the leadership level. So it has to be business viable because they are responsible for the stakeholders. So this is where the challenges are going on. So what I believe everyone of us has a role to play in energy transition. The best way and easiest way I feel is reduce use of electricity. But everyone wants to carry two mobiles, although you can carry one, right? So still people wants two mobiles. They want themselves being connected to the world every second and every minute. So the way we think need to change. Reduce the dependence on the fossil fuels. For example, in Subanajurong, sometimes when 4 of our employees, start from the same area, we do a carpooling type of thing. That's a good way to reduce carbon footprint. Explore ways to harness natural energy like solar, wind, tidal. Look for options if we can get additional options like afforestation and so on. So for us to actually move on, I believe government policies is the first step to drive the achievement of this energy transition. And where the governments are currently, various governments are speaking to each other. And in the same way, I believe that, even the companies has to come together to, find a proper, low cost-effective, low carbon solutions.
Yes. Do you see an increase in gasification? My personal view is gasification is underutilized.
Rightly said, Ellen. Actually, I personally believe that there is a scope for it to take on because the coal gasification, coal power plants are supposed to come down, right? So
yes.
There will be some coal gasification will be replacing that, I guess.
Certainly the Hong Kong example, one of the Hong Kong's power plants on Lamma Island is currently being transformed into gasification. And if you look at, certainly look at Australia, some of the plants in Australia, gasification is certainly on the rise. Gasification also opens up, certainly in my opinion, a lot of options for removing industrial waste and waste from cities. If you take the garbage of a city, you can easily take all the municipal rubbish, put it into a gasification plant and have syngas for generation, as well as being able to synthesize petrol, aviation fuel, kerosene. I think it's a technology that really should be looked at in greater detail for governments and companies, especially since all the catalysts have improved in the last few years. It's becoming a lot more economically viable than it was 10 years ago. Anyway, it was just my point. Shalin, could you add to this, please?
Yeah, I would say, I think, the energy transition initiative, it's not going to be overnight, right? No one's going to completely go greenfield overnight and start using green hydrogen tomorrow, because although we are making steps into, taking steps, the policies are being shaped more attractively, but not attractive enough yet to just switch over the light. I think the key challenges for managers nowadays is, firstly, you need to earn the right and the opportunity to have that discussion with your customers. So with all the supply chain issues that I was talking about earlier, and Raj has alluded to, your customers are going to look at you and say, hey, how are you maintaining my current install base in the first place before you talk new business, I think, at this point. So I would say, first, earn the opportunity to discuss new business by helping them, run their current power plant efficiently. Then maybe help them transition, I would say. Big ideas are great, they're sexy, they're the buzzwords, but how do you get there? Raj was talking a little bit about the brownfield. GE has invested a lot of technology into making the current install base more efficient. And then step by step, as the government is introducing policies that make it more attractive, we need to also be investing the back end to have that technology ready to combust 100% hydrogen while they're figuring out the infrastructure to build the pipeline and etc. and storage and whatever. So I think it's first think about your customers' needs and then build the path to long term. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, question 3. How can the energy sector transfer to a sustainable circular economy faster? Raj?
Yeah, you're asking very right questions, Ellen, one by one, actually. So nice, For me, circular economy is vital for energy transition. a circular economy system aims, getting most of the things out of the materials. If the materials and the products are designed to recycle them back, giving them a second life, I guess, eliminating the waste, which means every material will have a significant residual value at every end of, design step of every step, basically. So recently, I was looking at something called, World Economic Forum. It says that 70% of the world's GDP now are covered under the net zero targets, right? With the major economies which are aiming to decarbonize themselves by 2050, and I guess China is trying to do it by 2060. Right, and a circular economy with fossil fuels will be difficult because for us to generate energy, you have to burn them, basically, right? So there is no second life after burning them, right? So that's where we will be struggling if we are focusing on the fossil fuels. So what I would suggest is people should slowly think about how to transit from the current fossil fuel arena to a sustainable fuels like solar, wind, or your hydrogen, right? What are the challenges? So that is where I believe that various companies and the countries should come together to find the right solutions for the world.
Okay, thank you, Raj. Shalin?
I have not much to add. I think I think Raj is completely right. Even moving to renewable energy, there is also even that we need to think about the design of it, because I guess after that, the wind turbine blades, what are you going to do with the solar panels, how are you going to dispose them later on? I think that also need to be considered. So I agree with what Raj mentioned. You need to think of the whole life cycle of the product offering.
Mm-hmm. But Lynn, you have rightly said one very nice point about solar panels. People always think solar panels are very cheap, but they don't think about recycling of it.
Yes.
Right, the cost of the solar panels doesn't take into the recycling part yet. So
the whole life cycle cost, right? People need to think about the whole, even the disposal of it. I think people think until only to a certain extent of how much it serves them, but not to the end.
Yeah. So I think this is one of the things, Ellen, world is facing. When you are giving a second life, right, it is becoming an expensive deal.
Yes.
Right? That's where people are trying to struggle to make them, seamlessly circular. So
Yes.
I would call it so. Yeah.
Well, my opinion on this particular area, there is a shortage, a fundamental shortage of base materials. When you look at a turbine, for example, it can be between 2 to 5 tons of rare earth. It's called rare earth for a reason. It's rare. And if you look at solar panels, people have this misconception that silicon comes from sand. It doesn't. It comes from quartz. And there's a shortage of quartz. So my personal feeling, is silicon is not the way forward. Some of these new materials, parakites, type materials, I think is the future of solar. I don't think silicon solar is the long-term future in its present form, simply on the resource shortage. And as I said, there's no circular way of recycling these increasingly difficult materials. As for rare earths, that's going to hit at some point a limitation. Certainly China is going to be better than most countries. They have a large supply of rare earths. But that's going to be a limiting factor, in my opinion, on getting a sustainable circular economy. I still think we're going to be heavily dominated by fossil fuels even 40 years from now. This is why I think gasification has to be not overlooked, because gasification allows certainly coal and gas-fired plants to be changed into a lower carbon footprint and certainly more efficient. Anyway, that was just my point. My point of view. Okay, the fourth question. In terms of employment opportunities in the energy sector, are there good opportunities and prospects for those looking to enter the sector? Raj?
Okay. I'm a strong believer that opportunities are always be there. And also, with a lot of ongoing energy transition and decarbonization activities around the world, I would think that more opportunities will be available for the grads, right? I always tell them, you should understand the requirements of those roles, first of all, and then get ready yourself to take the challenge and, then it is easy for anyone to get a job, actually. So that's basically, you are mapping yourself to the requirements, and you are elevating yourself with those skills. So yeah, I believe more jobs will be on the table for everyone, on the platter for everyone to take. But again, who would like to be a part of the party?
Yes. Shilin?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is a lot of demand. I think more demand than supply, even at this point. I think, you know, people think energy sector and they think only engineer. Unfortunately, when they say, "Oh, it's just engineer," but I come from a finance and accounting background. I think the party that Raj talked about, it's like, do you want to build a world that works, and do you want to build a sustainable environment to live in? That you to make that big contribution, that's the energy sector for you. And there's many ways you can contribute and be part of this, party. You can be in the finance department and still make a big contribution. You can be part of the supply chain team, the sales team, or the engineering team. I think it's just a matter of like, does this industry excite you? And there's just a lot of things to be excited about, to be honest.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, question 5. Is there enough interest from recent graduates in pursuing careers in energy, or is recruitment into the sector seeing a shortage of supply to meet demand? Raj?
Yeah, when I see the people or meet the new graduates, or people who are coming from the universities like NTU, NUS in Singapore, they're really excited, Ellen. Actually, they're really excited to be, they want to be in this transition journey, energy transition journey, and decarbonization journey. And I believe that the universities are also taking initiatives to teach them the energy transition techniques, and also the decarbonization, as a part of their curriculum. And I think it will help them transit seamlessly and get the job easily, I guess. But again, when you meet and ask them, they will say how much they will pay first.
Yes.
So I always tell the young generation, don't you have to create the value by looking after all these new things. Then the pay will come for you as a. So that is the thing. I think I suggest the younger generations to always look at what is the value, what you are learning. It's a learning value in this particular sector, especially in the energy transition and decarbonization.
So, good answer. Shilin?
I don't have anything to add. I think Raj said whatever I wanted to say.
Yes. I just know from my own personal experience, boys' toys. First time I stood beside a gas train in a gas field, it is a very awe-inspiring experience. Certainly, when you visit these plants, when you see a big gas turbine for the first time, when you see a nuclear power plant, the scale of it really gets to you. Certainly for me, the interest is immediate once you just see just how big these things are, and certainly that's what keeps me interested, and I'm sure other people will relate to that. Okay, number 6. Does the sector suffer from any particular skill shortages at the moment? If so, are these the same across Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, or are there any differences? Raj?
Maybe let me give a try, Ellen, in this case. So for me, right, energy transition and decarbonization is a new area, and definitely most of the countries needs to develop their indigenous capacity to innovate. So it's a new area, so innovation strives in it. There are no sufficient experts in this area, and it is going to take time, and to develop the skill sets, and especially also to reskill the existing workforce is going to be a long journey, basically. Yeah. So to answer to your question, whether who is a friend and who is back in this time in this journey, I would say from a Singapore's point of view, I can see that there are a lot of initiatives taken by the government in terms of reskilling the employees, and more wider opportunities are provided. And I guess the same with Malaysia and other countries are also trying to do. There is no best answer to fit in for this in the current markets. But I think basically, you have to be more innovative to win the race.
Yes. Shilin?
I would say 2 points. I think first point is, I think, as we are all moving into this decarbonization journey, and the technology, is evolving every day very fast. And as we continue to upgrade the current install base for our customers, I think we need to also, as I mentioned earlier, we need to think about how we're going to also service our current install base. And with the aging population, I think we are also losing some expertise with our current install base. So we just need to carefully manage that, I would say. As we are talking about new technology with our customers, which is great, which is necessary, we just need to make sure we're maintaining that expertise to, as we slowly sunset and move them to a more, to a better technology to use. That's one I would say. And number two is, I think with the pandemic, we realized that, the digital capability is not as where we want it to be. And I think with the pandemic also, it has sped up kind of the digital transformations piece in the energy sector as well, not just from using digital, but how to sell digital. Because if you really want to conserve the energy you use in your building, you gotta need data, you need the metrics, and in that you are selling the software, the digital stuff to your customers in order for them to have that data to make smart decisions. And I think in order to do that, you need a workforce or a sales force who has that kind of expertise, who have that kind of digital fluency in order to do that. I think that we need to work better to make sure we have that workforce, or give better training in order they know what they're selling. I think those are the two things I would say.
Yes. My personal experience, you mentioned energy in buildings. Well, it's the air conditioning is the big problem. I've been working on projects where we're getting 40% reduction in the entire building simply by altering the air conditioning plants. The big thing I find is persuading people. They simply don't believe that you can get these efficiencies by doing engineering changes. So it's just how it is. Okay.
And I
Yes.
would just say, Alan, to your point, that's where I'm maybe this is a sales pitch. This is where I'm going to say to all the finance folks who are listening on this call, this is where you can work very well with the engineers to show the economics, right? Money speaks wonders. Like the finance is the language, but we're doing a good cause, but you're also going to save money by figuring out how to conserve energy. And, together, finance, digital, as well as the technology, we can do wonders. I think they just need to do that collaboration.
Yeah, from my experience, the best way of persuading large companies about energy is to remind them of the value, not the money they save, but the value. So the value to their shares is equal to the money you save multiplied by the price to earnings ratio. So it's huge money once you present it in that right way that top management understand. They don't understand engineering, never will, can't expect them to. But when you can tell them how much you can add value to the company by going down this path, suddenly they're interested. So yes, interesting area. Okay, moving on. My favorite question of the night. Is the accidental manager prevalent in the sector? E.g., are those with good skills and success technically promoted to management and leadership positions without formal management and leadership training? Raj?
Okay, for energy sector, I have come across quite a lot of technical people being groomed to take up the leadership or management roles.
Yes.
And my strong belief is basically, with a strong technical background and a formal management training or a degree, along with financial and commercial acumen, maybe could be more efficient and effective for the organizations at a leadership level, I guess.
Shilin?
I would say, I don't think it's specific to the energy sector. I apologize that I'm blaming the pandemic throughout this whole discussion, but I think that was one of the, because of that, I don't know whether you guys heard about the Great Resignation trend. Because of this whole thing of working from home and what the pandemic has done to our service sector and childcare, that has created a big issue with people resigning and feeling like they need to choose better jobs. That I think has impacted a lot of sectors. So because of that, I think turnover rates are high. Accidental manager scenarios are going to turn up anywhere. I think it's really up to the companies nowadays. I mean, if you promote someone who's technically strong but not manager ready, you need to make sure that you can bridge that gap with the right necessary training, or else your turnover rate is going to double. Because once someone's put into a position that they cannot do themselves, I think that will create another wave.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. My experience in this area, accidental manager is one of my biggest problems I've faced over the last 30 years in engineering. I've always found that technical issues can always be solved. You put some smart people, give them a technical problem, they'll solve it. But most of the problems in the big projects I've worked on are always people problems. It's always how to manage people, expectations, characters. People don't get on, people don't share information. So this whole area of putting people into critical positions without training, it's a real issue, and it really does affect the efficiency of companies. You're right to say lots of companies lose their best people out of frustration. They want to get something done, but people problems get in the way because the people on top of them or around them don't know how to manage people. And this is going to become increasingly important as the world gets more competitive. The efficiency of teams and the efficiency of management of those teams is going to be increasingly important. So I do think accidental manager issue is a real issue. Historically, management was never a profession. That's changing. That's the point of CMI, to change management into a profession. So I hope to see that improve in the future. But it's certainly, this question has been the single biggest problem I've faced across 70 odd countries over the last 30 years. It's always the people, and always the inability to properly manage people and get the best out of people. Okay, question 8. What does diversity and inclusion currently look like in the energy sector in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan? Of course, that's gender, ethnicity, age, etc. Raj?
Ellen, you're asking all the right questions today. I think in energy sector, I believe that gender gap is decreasing, and seeing many companies promoting gender balanced recruitment and campaigns, and also companies deploying diversity and also inclusion policies. Some of the companies, like you can see that in my company as well, and Shell and the bigger boys. I guess the same with GE as well. I believe diversity helps the companies to collaborate, innovate, adapt, and grow together, which are very key traits required for the energy transition and decarbonization journey, where all the companies are traveling through currently.
Okay, Shailin?
Yeah, I think any company that is not investing or figuring out whether their organization is structured to invite diversity and inclusion it's not going to last. And I think everyone knows that. Everyone knows it. The question is just how much time are you investing in order to build that environment in the company. I think with a lot of the things that are happening around the world, people are having that more open discussion. GE recently had a Courageous Conversation Week where everybody, in Asia and all the parts of the world have that kind of conversations about like what issues they're seeing, the trends they're seeing, and helping people bring awareness to like what does it mean, cultural differences between countries, what does it mean when they say something, but what do they actually really mean?
Yes.
And I think people put too light of a weight on that, but actually it brings a lot of effectiveness in even in meetings and conversations and how you manage people, in fact. So I would say always room to improve in this area. And people are, and I don't mean, and I hope companies don't use that as an excuse. There's always room to improve, but really taking the time to measure themselves on how are they, moving that needle, so that they don't use excuse, because this is going to be a journey, a long journey. But how are you showing progress is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly from the Hong Kong perspective, Hong Kong's doing okay. I see across all the industries, not just energy. You're seeing a better mix of gender across the companies. You're getting women into high positions. Ethnicity, well, we don't have, or in Hong Kong, much of a mix. Majority of people, of course, Chinese. So, but you definitely have always traditionally had a mix here, where people tend to be employed by their ability rather than anything else. We do have an age issue, I think, in Hong Kong. Once you're above 25, you're considered too old to do anything. I think age is going to be the biggest problem in the future. The attitude of people. There's certainly a cultural difference between the different generations. I get called grandfather far too often, especially by my kids. So age, the talent, the experience is in the older generation, and the issue is going to be, how do you get that knowledge base down to the generation below? So yes, there's a lot of work to go, but I certainly believe, as you do, that any company that cannot change and be inclusive and embrace diversity cannot survive. Talent comes in any form. Talent is talent. Doesn't matter where they come from, what their background is. If they have talent, they have talent. That's really how it should be.
Completely.
I hope, yes.
Completely. I would just add one more example.
Yeah.
Like, in Japan today, people, even recruitment companies are having that discussion of like, would you only want to hire people who can speak Japanese?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is also something against diversity. And if you are looking for talent who has that technical background or who has that management capability, would you be restricted to let language be that deciding factor? So I think that's another thing outside of just gender and race, language capability. I mean, we have technology these days that can help translate. So we'll see.
Yes, I've used them. They're very useful. I've also found sometimes language is used against you in projects. I've certainly had the experience of, I understand what they're saying, but as soon as they know that I can understand their own language, I get you understand how we do things, and once you do that, you can't get over the culture. So sometimes it's good to play dumb. I don't understand. You have to use English and do it my way. It can be very helpful and allowing people to get on with things. So, but yes, it's a very interesting area.
Maybe one question, Lynn. I think when I was working in Japan earlier, basically male-female ratio used to be a bit skewed. Mm-hmm. But I guess now it is improving quite a lot, I guess, right?
It is improving, but it's not at the rate that we would like, I would say. But definitely, that's why I say it's also different by companies in Japan. American companies in Japan are definitely more open, I would say. And I think traditional Japanese companies are making its way because of these discussions of like, will you let language barrier be that deciding factor? So I would say improving, but always our expectation of these, we want more, right? We want faster improvement.
Well, certainly Japan has to face its aging population. Japan traditionally doesn't really embrace immigration into the country. So at some point, reality has to hit. If you don't have inclusion, if you don't deal with these issues, you're simply not going to have anyone. So let's see, hopefully the future will improve. But I certainly do think the age one is the biggest one, rather than gender and ethnicity. I think the age is the current problem the world faces, and when it comes to how they recruit people, they really do think people who are older have no ability, even though we're the ones with the experience. Okay, question. Yes, Raj.
Sorry, just one more sentence here. In terms of Singapore, probably you will see that there is a good mix
Yes.
You will see quite a lot of, even both from ethnicity point of view and as well as from, gender point of view.
Yes.
But probably I think age is where a little bit, you will see, on a higher end, on an average age.
Yeah.
But still, I think you will see fairly a good mix, I guess, from Singapore point of view.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to question 9. How do you see Asia's energy sector evolving to deal with the current challenges and issues and to embrace the opportunities? Raj.
So for me, Asia is a hub of energy, or even for the future, the demand for the energy is in Asia. So which means new infrastructure developments to support current and future fuels, example, import, storage terminals, FSRUs, process plants, ammonia bunkering, storage, CCUS facilities, etc. Or maybe I think the commitment of the governments with the roadmaps for these energy transitions and the decarbonization probably requires a more strong focus on it. Example, government policies to boost energy security, subsidies for the sustainable energy investments, etc., might help to make the things do faster. Training of the manpower, which we discussed in detail, 3 of us, training of the manpower, retooling their skills to deal with the upcoming challenges, because we have to be agile, because we are getting into a new arena, where it is not tested waters yet. So that's where the agility comes into the play. And last but not the least is collaborative approach between the governments, different countries, and companies to find solutions, to achieve much faster, to achieve the net zero targets much more faster. Probably that will really, it's all we have to embrace all these challenges together, I guess.
Shilin?
Yep, I would say 2 trends which I don't think I'm holding a crystal ball, but I think you guys are already seeing, and that we just need to manage that better. Diversification in energy sources and diversification in supply chain. I think on energy sources, I think we've seen it with the Russian war, where you're getting your liquefied gas and where you're getting your gas sources. If you put all your eggs in one basket, you're paying for it now. And I think that's why I think managers now need to think about offering hybrid solutions. That's where you come in, and also working with the customers to figuring out what that means for them. So I think that's one. In terms of like diversification in supply chain, it used to be all about like cost, right? Wherever it's cheaper, that's where I'm going to put everything. But I think what this has taught us in the environment we're in is that cheaper is not always better.
Yes.
The risk awareness on like what the future holds, and scenario analysis needs to be done much more for every manager right now, figuring out what is going to go wrong and how am I protecting myself against that. Does that mean localization? Does that mean having an extra tool center within the region? That I think everyone is figuring out right now, and they have to do that quickly, I think.
Yes, good points. You mentioned earlier that the whole energy sector isn't just about engineering. Well, one point is the financial models used to build infrastructure, the public-private partnership model. We're seeing an increase, certainly what I work in, as a financial model to pay for some of these large infrastructure projects, because commercial entities on their own simply can't take that kind of risk. So certainly there are many opportunities, even for financial people, who can come up with new and interesting ways to ensure everyone can get this to work. Yes, thank you very much for that question. Now, some questions from our listeners.
Let's pick. Ellen, I want to add one small, if you allow me. Sorry.
Yes, please.
I think we have to be innovative in framing the contracts as well. So the existing contracting regime is very restrictive for most of the companies to align, and the risk aversiveness type of things. Those are the things probably companies have to look into, how they can overcome the challenges. You have to be a little bit innovative in all the fields, like what Lynn has said, right? You have to be innovative in your finance, contracts, and the way you do the things. Technically, all these things will fasten the deployment of the new energy transition and decarbonization solutions. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank
Okay.
you.
No, thank you, Raj.
Good
Okay,
points.
question from Tom, one of our viewers. What are the general views towards nuclear power in Asia now post Fukushima? If you're trying to replace base fossil fuel load now, then nuclear is currently the most viable option. Raj, what's your views on this?
So my views on nuclear is still, it's a long way for the people to go move until the energy transition and decarbonization solutions we are unable to find, which are fit for purpose, I guess. But yes, I agree with Tom's view that nuclear has a role to play, and you will see that the nuclear, the percentage of nuclear will also increase in the years to come. What I believe. But still, it may not grow as big as gas and other, upcoming technologies.
Yes. Shilin?
Same with Raj. I think I see Korea and Japan slowly opening it up to talking about nuclear and using it, but I don't think it would take up the big chunk of the pie in terms of the energy diversity sources.
Mm-hmm. Well, my view on nuclear, I'm very pro-nuclear for various reasons. For base loading, nuclear plants definitely serve as base loading. You turn them on, you don't turn them off. The other renewables tend to come up for the variable part of the load. My father was nuclear industry. He was nuclear instrumentation. So age of 6, I could tell you everything about nuclear reactors and how they work. I see thorium reactors. I think China or India are going to crack the thorium reactor. That's the salt reactor. I think when that happens, we're going to see a very interesting situation, because thorium is very cheap. And if they can get that to work, that's going to be that's going to be a game changer. Fusion, well, it's still, all my lifetime I've heard people say, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, I'm still waiting. 50 years later, I'm still waiting. But certainly nuclear, I think we have a good opportunity to put nuclear in as a baseline. The problem with nuclear is its public perception, this risk perception, as Japan found out. If you don't design things properly, you get these black swan events, which wipes out an entire industry or wipes out an entire area. So it's the confidence people have in nuclear is the problem more than the actual technology. So yes, good question, Tom. I do believe nuclear is an option that we should look at more. Okay, let's get another question. Okay, from Sam. What are the key skills that will be needed by future managers and leaders in the energy sector? Raj?
I believe in the current environment, Ellen, agility is a very key. Basically, you have to be agile because you are entering into the very new spaces. You have to be, risk-taking approach should be there a bit. You cannot be risk-averse. You have to be adaptable to the, changing environments, which is also very key. And you have to make the people valued and valuable, because nowadays people are also, is a big concern. And then how do we manage them in a hybrid teams? That's becoming a challenge for the managers and also the leaders.
Yes. Shilin?
I would add on. I say I think, gone the days where your team is sitting around you, right? And I think all those micromanagers out there, I don't know how they're dealing with this, right? I think it's a little bit of trust, and how do you build a system to know that things are working without you having to watch? And I think this should have been obvious long time ago, but obviously the environment we're in pushed us into speeding up this transformation. So I think that's what I would say. Raj is completely right on that. How do you work in this new telework environment. It's one. Number two, I think we touched a little bit on it earlier, and this is a bit on agility as well, but like risk, I think risk assessment, risk awareness, it has become so key. I think we've kind of like, because the energy demand is always going to be there, people may be in a relaxed mode, thinking that the way they do things with how many ERP systems they have and how many legal entities they have and how many systems they have, it's completely okay. But it's not. I think that's what we learned. With the supply chain issues that I talked about earlier, that just shows that, having that forecast done a quarter in advance is enough. But now we realize it's not enough. We need to not only see what we are planning as a company, but we need to see how our vendors are planning and how our customers planning. A tighter collaboration is required now, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
And last but not least, I would say, and this would be an odd one, but I think everyone in this industry would have to think like a scientist now.
Yes.
Meaning you just need to be open-minded and not only just push for your own beliefs, but everything must be questioned. Are you really right? And whatever the person's telling you in front, is it wrong? Gone the days we behave like priests and a politician. It's time to behave like scientists, because everything is changing every day, I would say.
Yes. Well, I'm fairly lucky in that I work in various different projects. One of the projects I work in is neuroscience and looking at flow state, how to get an individual into a flow state and how to get groups of people into a flow state. So getting a team cohesive is probably the holy grail of management in the future. Power in a company is not at the top anymore. Power has moved down to the bottom inside the teams. No one's telling you how to do the job anymore. It's you guys figure it out. And that's the trend. So adaptability, yes, patience, communication, trust. Trust has to be the basis of management. If people don't trust you, you're not going to get anything from them, no matter how qualified they are. So if you don't build trust and value people at the core of a company's stakeholder model, it will become increasingly difficult for these companies to survive. That's just how I see that. So yes, patience, adaptability, all these things really matter.
I really like what you said, Alan. I think flow state. I think people always think of that in the manufacturing floor, in the assembly line, how to get to flow state. But now it's about how do you get to flow state in a transactional world? Behind the computer, how do you get to flow state? That is a very challenging, but very interesting problem to solve as a manager today.
Yes. Yeah. Well, EEG feedback is the area I work in one of my projects, where we measure people's brains in real time, and we can train them using feedback how to get into a flow state, how to develop long periods of concentration. Interesting area, but I'm sure in the future it's going to be a management tool. I definitely see companies investing in how to make teams more adaptable, work closely. You see it in many areas. You see it in basketball teams, you see it in football teams. They just know. You don't tell them what to do. They just intuitively know everyone around them and what everyone else needs and what you need to do. So it's not a rigid command control structure where you have a manager and you have subordinates. It's a structure where you're a team. Anyone can take charge and anyone can take orders, and it has to be dynamic. The best idea wins, and people intuitively know that's the best idea. Okay, what do you need to achieve it? That's a change of culture, management culture, but it's certainly coming. Good question, really good question. Okay, another question, back to the diversity, equality and inclusion. This is from Taranjeet. What is the true value that shareholders see in the DEI initiatives, and how does this translate to total shareholder returns, if any? What are the challenges that are slowing this down? That's from Taranjeet. Raj?
Maybe for me, I think DEI means, it is more connected to the reputation of a company, basically.
Yeah.
So it actually builds the reputation, eventually bringing them more projects, or, in the more revenue. That's how I see it into the shareholders' engagement. But I agree with Taranjeet. Initially, when you invest on DEI model, you have to be patient. You have to be
Mhm.
resilient to get there, because there is no correct path or only one path. So that's the reason the returns for the shareholders might delay a bit. But if you are successful in showing to the world that you have a robust DEI model, definitely, probably the reputation will convert that into a shareholder value.
Shailin?
I would say the same. I mean, like, I obviously can't quote numbers, but if anybody knows the Melinda Gates Foundation, Melinda has wrote a book. All the numbers are in there where they did extensive research on what diversity, how it would impact multiple type of sectors, agriculture, service. I think the research is out there to show that it's obviously going to bring, in terms of shareholder value, yes, revenue, profits, because people are having multiple different ideas. And as I was saying earlier, with that scientist mindset, more ideas coming in, then you can find out what is the best way path forward. That's what you want. And that's what you get from investing in this. Correctly mentioned, these things don't, once you put a foreign object in the team, it's not going to be immediately you achieve flow, right? You got to figure out how to work together, but eventually it will translate into the returns. So patience, I agree with Raj, nothing to add further. Challenges in slowing this down, though, I would say, in my opinion, just on top of my head, is short-term returns mindset.
Yes.
If you think about hitting that number, or if you have an open position that has been open for a long time, and you need to fill it in order to get the job done. If you pick a friend rather than someone who probably thinks different from you, looks different from you, and probably could get the job done better just because it's going to take a little bit time for you to get to know them through an interview and figure that out, then the loss is on you.
Yes. Well, there's also some historical problems. A director's duty is to the shareholders, it's not to the stakeholders. And what we're really talking about here is moving from a shareholder model to a stakeholder model. Most companies now are global. They have offices in Dubai, they have offices in China and Japan, around the world. So the staff have to travel. You have to be able to walk into any environment and get on with people and work with them. I have a beard because I'm working with friends in Dubai a lot this year, and a beer just makes it easier for me to sit down and drink coffee with them. All these little things, people have to understand. The world is global. Talent is global. Talent will move. You either look after people, treat people fairly, regardless of their religion or their skin color or anything else. Talent is talent. They do the job. They do the job. Anyone who doesn't follow that, you won't survive in the longer term. And it's just a matter of shareholders being educated enough that they have to move away from these short-term thinking. And directors' duty should be towards the bigger picture, or at least shareholders should allow the directors to have a stakeholder model. But right now, if you act in the interest of a stakeholder rather than the shareholder, you'll be sued. So that education has to come from the corporate governance level and then permeate down. Good, very good question. I like that question, Taranjeet. Okay, well, we are getting close to the end of the questions. Let's see if we can find one more little question. Okay, Wei Lun. Quick question. Hi, team. What are the top 3 action managers can take to drive energy transition journey in their own way in the next 10 years? Raj?
It's a good question from Ellen, actually. Ellen. See, you have to be, first of all, agnostic to the technologies. You cannot drive your own agenda. You have to be agnostic when you are going on to the innovation. That is number 1. Number 2 is the agility again. You have to be very agile. You should know what are the risks. Are you able to identify the risks very quickly? Because it's a first of its type of kinds. You have to test the waters. And and you have to gain the confidence of the shareholders and also the teams around you while you are driving it. basically. The confidence will boost the people around you, and then that can turn into a solution for various people or various organizations. So that's how I see it. I think as I see, like, it is a journey, as Vailon rightly said, that it's an energy transition is going to be a journey, and who would like to embark onto the train in this journey is what like-minded people coming together, synergize, to provide solutions to the world. I think that's where we have to be.
Okay, Shailin?
I would say along the same lines of giving people the confidence is finding the right partner. I think you gotta find first the right customer that was willing to pilot, because you've got a good partnership, you've proven your track record, and they are gonna hop on this train and be the first runner with you. One, the right customer. Number two, the right partners, because it's GE supplies the technology for the combustion piece of the puzzle, but to go on to this energy transition journey, it's the whole thing, right? It's how do you get the hydrogen gas, how do you transport it, how do you store it, and that means we can't do that alone. Who is the right partner to partner with us? Someone who can at least also earn the trust of your customer to deliver that ultimate solution to them. I would say doing that homework and finding the right partner would be very important, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. We've come to the end of our session tonight. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Shailin. Very insightful. Thank you to the audience for tuning in this evening. And now I'll hand you back to Samantha.
Thanks, Ellen.
That's it for today's session. Thank you to everyone who joined us, and thank you, Dr. Miller, Zelin, and Govindaraj for your insights and expertise. Don't forget, if you're a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct using the link in the live chat, and you can find a wide range of exclusive and practical development resources and much more. And if you're not yet a member or subscriber, you can join our community via the link that's also in the live chat to gain full access to our Management Direct portal. You can also sign up for free to our CMI newsletter for the latest trends and tips from managers and leaders. Please do take a few moments to let us know your thoughts on today's event by completing the evaluation form, which we have included in the link into the live chat. Thank you again for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.